This is the Anycubic Photon, a machine capable of producing incredibly high resolution 3D prints at a never before seen price point. But do I recommend it? Let's get started. How's it going, guys? My name is Angus and this is the Anycubic Photon, a resin 3D printer. It differs significantly to most of the 3D printers I review on the channel. Most 3D printers you'll find at this price point use a technology called FDM, or Fused Deposition Modeling, which uses a plastic filament as its feedstock, melted out of an extruder. This machine, however, uses a liquid resin which is polymerized by ultraviolet light to construct 3D prints, a technology known as DLP, or direct light processing. Though it's a new breed of this technology which people are calling LCD shadow masking, I'll go into the significance of this in a little bit. The printer has a build volume of 115 by 65 by 155 millimeters, which at first glance is super tiny. In fact, it makes it among one of the smallest build volumes in a 3D printer I've ever reviewed. That's probably the smallest. However, this machine does have a secret weapon: incredible print quality. Earlier implementations of DLP utilized a projector to selectively cure each layer of resin. This works great, however dramatically increased the cost, size, and difficulty of dialing in the machine. Eventually someone realized they could instead replace the projector setup with an LCD display and a much lower cost UV LED behind the unit, selectively curing each layer that way, and this is how the Anycubic Photon works. The LCD resolution will effectively determine the resolution of your 3D prints, so it's really good that Anycubic went with a 2K panel with a resolution of 2560 by 1440. It also makes the 3D printer mechanically simple compared to FDM, with only one stepper motor used in the Z-axis, which means you need very high Z accuracy and repeatability along with rigidity to make all the difference when it comes to 3D printing, because after all, you can print at 25 microns. Yes, 25 microns, that's 1/40th of a millimeter, and resin 3D printers are capable of reproducing incredibly fine detail, making these machines perfect for 3D printing of miniatures, jewelry masters, and other tiny prototypes. The printing time also isn't anywhere nearly as long as you might expect at those layer heights, because the machine is capable of curing an entire layer at once. In some cases, prints are faster than FDM, even at a finer layer height. Yeah, wrap your head around that one. You load the files via the included USB stick into the side of the machine, and it has a really nice responsive color touch screen, which doesn't need a stylus. To kick things off, I leveled the print surface as per the instructions, which are excellent by the way, and printed their demo file. A freaking lattice cube torture test. While this kind of model is super challenging for some other printing technologies, Anycubic were so confident in their machine that their demo file is actually a lattice cube with their logo through it. I printed this model first and the print is pretty much flawless. When setting up the machine, the most delicate aspect is getting the print bed perfectly leveled and at the right height, because these parts come out of the print bath and the bed goes right against the LCD glass, and if you get it wrong, you risk cracking that glass, which would be kind of disastrous. Once it's set, however, you're good to go as long as you're not too violent getting the prints off the print bed when you take them out. Just undo the screw and take off the plate. It's really simple to do. Something you might not be familiar with is the fact that resin 3D printers also need support material. However, they work best with this tree style supports, and the slicer packaged with the printer does a decent job at generating them as well as giving you a print preview. It actually works better than expected. This Maker coin printed at 50 micron layer heights just doesn't look or feel right without the obvious layer lines I'm used to from FDM. Instead, it's perfectly smooth and you need light to actually see the layers. It's really trippy. I even tried my Easter egg torture test, and alas, it did well to itself at the bottom, but the print quality is superb. What's really crazy is you can actually see the artifacts caused by the pixels in the LCD, but personally I think that's kind of cool. It's like our first step towards true voxel 3D printing. For those who don't know, a voxel is a 3D pixel, And a lot of people believe that 3D printing will go to the future where things will be arranged with voxels all at once. And this is kind of our first step towards it. It's an artifact that's a lot easier to control and predict than trying to predict the path of extruded molten plastic like in FDM. My tester bottle of green was getting low, so I drained the tray and threw in some grey resin. It wasn't perfectly clean, so I ended up with a bit of a mix, but it actually looks pretty cool, and I don't really care about printing color. I've never really cared much for that. But I did mention that the Photon was good for figurines, so I went way back to my roots and 3D printed a Vanguard out of Chivalry Medieval Warfare. And a big shout out to my dudes over in Chivalry. I love playing with you guys, even now. But I ripped this back in 2014, and back then there was no printer on the market that I could afford that was capable of reproducing this figurine. So it's pretty damn impressive that we've come this far to a $500 3D printer in 2018 in just a couple of years. It's not perfect though. I've left the supports on just to show you how it works. And some of the supports actually fail to adhere to areas, which gives you a weird sort of failure mode. But it can actually get worse than this. The supports can fail completely and the part can remain stuck to the printing film at the bottom of the tray. You see, the Photon has a thin plastic film at the bottom of the tray protecting the LCD screen, and when the resin is polymerized, it suctions hard to this. It's a problem that all resin printers have to overcome. And if the support material can't overcome that suction and pull the part free to make way for the next layer, it just stays stuck to this film and gets worse and worse. And what's really annoying is you can't see this happening until it's well clear of the bath and it's way too late. And also because the cured parts are exactly the same color as the uncured resin that's liquid in the tray, you can't see them either. And you have to be really careful to drain the tray and remove it by sort of flexing the plastic and using the plastic spatula to get these parts free or risk damaging the thin plastic film. It's a total nightmare to deal with. And this is probably the perfect segue into my complaints about resin 3D printers, mostly in the safety department. Here's the thing, there's no two ways about this. Resin 3D printers are way messier to run than FDM machines, and they have very serious safety issues concerning the uncured resins that they use. As I demonstrated in this video, post-processing of these prints, these resin prints, is both messy and tedious. You need to wear nitrile gloves and safety glasses to ensure you don't touch any of the uncured resin. And of course, if you touch the uncured resin with the gloves, anything else you touch gets covered in uncured resin. And then before the parts are ready, you need to finally cure them under a UV light source, whether the sun or a dedicated UV lamp. This is worlds away from something like the Prusa Mark III or a similar FDM 3D printer, where you just literally pop the parts off the print bed and you're done. The resin also has a very strong odor that I do need to talk about. It's not pleasant. During operation, the cooling fan for the high power UV lamp vents air out of the machine and it brings the resin smell with it. And when not in use, the machine doesn't really have much of a smell to it, but when it's printing, yeah, you'll know about it. I find myself really sensitive to it actually, and honestly I can't stand being in the same room. I've been running this in the garage, and if I have to print, I'll just close all the doors and not be in that garage while it's operating. You can definitely get different resins with less odor though. Like my experience with the Form 2 was very different. The Form 2 resins had a very low odor compared to the resins that came with this machine, but there's a massive price difference between the two, and obviously the Form 2 is a much more sophisticated, higher end product. It can't really be compared fairly to this. So conclusion time. Do I recommend the Anycubic Photon? Well, as you can probably guess by now, the answer is a big fat it depends. There is no question that the print quality is absolutely incredible. It blasts past anything possible on any FDM 3D printer on the market today, at a price point that is affordable to the average hobbyist. But the safety and mess concerns with resin 3D printers in general makes me hesitate recommending this machine to everyone. Because quite frankly, unless you're absolutely committed to keeping this thing going, it's a very hard sell when compared to the ease of use of a similarly priced FDM like the Cetus or Anycubic's very own Anycubic Mega, which is a larger FDM i3 design. These machines print larger, are easier to maintain, although they do emit some odors while printing. Trust me, it's nowhere near what I got off the resins in this system. FDM machines also have no issues just being turned off and left for long periods of time, like weeks or even months, whereas with resin systems, you need to actually do a pack down routine where you drain the resin and clean the tank, or you're going to come back to a machine where the resin's just cured over time and it's damaged the entire tray. These blue covers are actually the wrong color to block the UV wavelength, so that's not going to do much in its favor either in terms of stopping the resin in the tray curing when you're not around. If you're into designing small figurines and objects requiring incredible detail but can't afford a higher end system like the Form 2, then I can highly recommend this machine if you take the safety aspects seriously. But if you're a casual hobbyist, like myself, to be completely honest, you're probably better off sticking with FDM. But a big thanks to Anycubic for sending this machine across, and as with all reviews here on Maker's Muse, what's being presented here is my personal opinion and no money has changed hands. This channel has exploded recently, so if you're new here, I would like to personally welcome you to Maker's Muse. It is my aim to empower your creativity through technology, and look forward to seeing you again very shortly. Catch you later, guys. Bye.